Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. No matter where I go in the world, even in incredibly remote places, as long as there's one other person, I know that the odds of me being asked the question go way up. I'll be on an assignment, I'll have my tripod set up, I'll be completely surrounded by photographic equipment, and someone will walk up to me, total stranger, and they'll say, "What are you doing? Taking pictures?" You know, it doesn't matter how obvious it is to me what I'm doing. The basic human need to connect is a whole lot more powerful than obvious. Well, after being asked that question about 300-400 times, I thought, let me see what happens if I tell somebody the truth. So one day about 10 years ago, I was in Savannah, and a grandmother and her grandson out for a walk came up and asked the usual, "What are you doing, taking pictures?" And I said, "No, ma'am, I'm solving problems." Well, she looked at me a little sideways, grabbed her grandson, pulled her grandson away from me so he couldn't possibly get what she thought I had, and then she scolded me. And she said, "Well, you sure do look like you're taking pictures to me." So much for the truth. So much for the truth. Well, you know, it's not at all unusual for the grandmother to have that kind of response, nor anybody else. I mean, I'm a photographer. What do photographers do? We take pictures. Well, what most of us really do is we make pictures. And in order to make pictures, we have to solve problems. And what I'd like to do tonight is share with you some of the tools and the techniques of creative problem solving that I've learned in the last 30 years. And they are universal. They're applicable whether we're running a business, whether we're running our home, or just running our life. Well, where do we start? Where should we start? I'd like to start with you all thinking about what you do in a typical day. What do you do in a typical day? All day long, as adults, most of us do nothing but solve problems. From the time we get up till the time we go to bed, and even beyond. And at the end of the proverbial day, we have to come back with the goods every single day. And it doesn't matter what the goods are. The goods could certainly be a product or a service, but the goods might also just be a plan or an objective, or it might just be an idea, or in my case, a photograph that represents any one of those. Well, how do we ensure that every day we come back with the goods? How do we ensure that? To explore that question, I'd like to take you all on a road trip. The best place I've ever found to solve a problem, any kind of problem, is on the open road. Why? Why does an open road always open your mind? Well, physiologically, I have no idea. But I can tell you what I've witnessed. I have taken hundreds of clients and crew with me on the road. And I've watched the open road work its magic on all of us. Within an hour, our moods have brightened and all of our troubles have fallen away. Why? Well, I call it the spirit of the open road. Your senses are filled with new sights and sounds and smells, and your mind is opened by these experiences. One of the very first projects was a book celebrating the state of Maryland. And one winter day, I rounded a corner. I saw this scene developing. These two people right here had just left the house. They were standing about right here. Notice now that the house is dark. Well, hoping and praying that I would come upon a scene like this, I had preset 2 cameras on the seat next to me. And I slid to a stop, I grabbed the right camera, ran across the road because I didn't have enough time to set up a tripod, jumped in a snowbank, and boom, there was the image. All of this took place in less than a minute. And there's now even a light on in the house. Well, you tell me, was this chance? Was this preparation? Or was this magic? I firmly believe that it was all three. And because of the magical connection between chance and preparation, I've added one more question to my list. In addition to the 6 questions of journalism, I've added the question that turns information into knowledge. Are you sure? Are you sure? One of the great symbols of the state of Maryland is the double bridge across the Chesapeake Bay. And I wanted to show just exactly how important this bridge was to the state. And I tried from hundreds of places all over the Chesapeake Bay to make that image. One day, on a flight back into Washington, I saw a new angle and I had an idea. But how could I be sure that the sun would set where I needed it to set? Well, I called the Naval Observatory, and one of the really nice astronomers up there taught me how to do that. I did the math. I figured out what day this event was going to happen, and I figured out where I needed to be, and boom, there it was. Now, if you believe that I knew that 2 trucks would be silhouetted against the sun, I need to see you immediately after this program. Chance does indeed favor the prepared mind. And the great German author Goethe takes it a step further. Until one is committed, there is always hesitancy, the chance to draw back. The moment one commits oneself, then providence moves too. Well, that's such a powerful statement. Let's take a closer look at exactly what happened. This is the very first frame on the roll. And you can see that the sun has to move from where it is all the way down to here. It only has about 8 or 9 minutes to do all that. So the pucker factor for me was way up, whether I did all those calculations right. Here's the last frame on that roll. Now, both of those frames are really unremarkable, and neither of them are memorable. Even the very next frame doesn't have all the elements. It's not balanced. So let's see. Let's review. Preparation leads to commitment. And chance is really providence. So providence favors the prepared mind. I didn't make this image all by myself. If you make the problem your passion, that passion will make possible situations where providence can favor the prepared mind. At the end of my first year of college, I went to visit my 90-year-old grandmother, Nana. And we were chatting, and she asked me if I was having any trouble academically. Well, I thought this was kind of a strange question from my grandmother. We'd never had that kind of a question before. And I was a pretty decent student, so there was a little swagger in my voice when I said, well, I am having trouble getting a handle on quadratic equations. And she looked at me and she said, oh dear. And she got up, she went out to the kitchen, and she made a pot of tea. She came back in, she poured herself a cup, and she poured me a cup. And then she picked a yellow pad up off this couch, and she said, now, what part of quadratics don't you understand? Solutions are sometimes found in very unexpected places. 2 hours later, I understood quadratic equations. And even though I had known that Nana was a college graduate, I learned she had a double master's in physics and mathematics, magna cum laude, from the University of Pennsylvania in 1900. And she hadn't thought about quadratic equations in 65 years. Now, even though this little bit of the unexpected happened in my grandmother's parlor, don't think for a moment that this doesn't happen on a grand scale. We're now on the shores of Lake Maracaibo in Venezuela, where I was privileged to accompany a team of doctors who were investigating a unique family, all with Huntington's disease. Now, this is a dominant disorder, where each one of these kids has a 50-50 chance of inheriting the gene. Huntington's is the fatal degenerative neurological disorder that afflicted Woody Guthrie, the folk singer. Now, we gave psychological tests and we did neurological exams. This gentleman has done his best to copy the patterns at the top of the page. And you can see just exactly how devastating this disease is to the central nervous system. We took blood and tissue samples from everyone, and we sent them back to team members at Harvard for DNA analysis. This huge extended family lives in villages all around Lake Maracaibo. And in each of these villages, we photographed everyone, we took family histories, and we compiled an amazing family tree that's now 1,000 pages long. And one of the places we visited was a stilt village named Laguneta. This crude shelter served as a home for 18 people. And because this village is so remote, families have intermarried, and they've produced double-dose children, whose odds of having the gene, thus getting the disease, increased to 3 out of 4. And in this double-dose family, it was the young boy in the white shirt who won all of our hearts. And it was his DNA that led researchers to the discovery of the gene for Huntington's disease. For the first time in medicine, a gene was found when researchers didn't know what chromosome it was on. About 6 months ago, researchers finished mapping the entire human genome, and the techniques that they used started in a tiny stilt village at the bottom of Lake Maracaibo. A single snowflake can start an avalanche, and solutions are frequently found in unexpected places. The most beautiful thing we can experience is the mysterious. It's the source of all true art and all science. He who can no longer pause to wonder and stand wrapped in awe is as good as dead. His eyes are closed. Those are the words of Albert Einstein. So let your eyes not only see, let them behold, and you will release your imagination. You'll embrace the spirit of the open road. Oliver Wendell Holmes said, "The mind, once expanded to the dimensions of a larger idea, never returns to its original size." So find a fresh perspective. Get a fresh look. Make a new beginning. Allow yourself that moment away from our connected world. Find your horizon. Nourish your soul, and you'll find the joy in our journey. Because sometimes we get going so fast with a window of acceptability that's so small that we can no longer see what's important. And we lose what I believe is the most valuable connection we have after our families. And that connection is to something larger than ourselves, to a higher order in the universe. And we need to look every day for confirmation of that connection to what truly inspires us. The wise Pearl Bailey said, "People see God every day. They just don't recognize Him." And Merlin from King Arthur says, "The gods will take care of us, but first, we must put ourselves in the path of the gods." For me, the open road puts me in the path of the gods. And when we put ourselves in that path and then reconnect to our everyday world, we are so much more. We are refreshed. We are renewed. We're ready to reconceive. We're ready to see what we've already seen and then think what we've never thought and then do what we've never done. And as we become better and better problem solvers, we learn that we can get on the open road anytime, anywhere. It is indeed not just a place, it's a state of mind. And I've now reached the point in that state of mind where I believe most of us feel blessed and grateful to live in this networked age of information. And I believe our universe is one of abundance, not scarcity. And as the 6 billion of us who share this planet open a new millennium, I believe we will use all that information to our betterment, that we will live up to our species' name, Homo sapiens, wise woman, wise man. And all of this gives me great hope that our children might someday live in the age of knowledge and their children in the age of wisdom. In the meantime, find a different way home, and enjoy the ride. Thank you all very much.